Good morning. Welcome to the July edition of the SSIS Coffee Talks. Backed by popular requests, we're having open discussion where you get to drive the topics that we talk about. So, my name is Ross Stack. I'm here. I'm one of the e-learning specialists on the user support team. And as we go through today's presentation, each person will start their presentation with an introduction of themselves so you know who's talking. And we'll get started right now. I'm going to go into the agenda. So today we're going to do a welcome. We're going to talk about the housekeeping as always. Because we're recording, we have the Tennyson warning for y'all to read. We'll get there. We have announcements, some mentor questions, Cassie's Corner, Marcia's Magic, the Mentor of the Month, and then some closing announcements. So that's what we're going to be doing today. For the housekeeping, as always, attendees have been muted upon entry. Again, because we are recording, we want to keep the background noise at a minimum and make sure the audio quality is at a maximum. To speak, please raise your hand using the reaction emoji at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be unmuted by one of the panelists. Questions can also be submitted through the chat feature, which will be monitored by SSIS Business Ops staff. Closed captioning can be enabled using the CC button located on the bottom left of your screen. And the session is being recorded and will be posted along with a copy of the PowerPoint on the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy website in approximately 7 to 10 business days, usually a little bit sooner. Here is the Tennyson warning. We're going to give you about, I don't know, 2 minutes or 3 minutes or so to read through it because it's required by law when we're recording. Hopefully that was enough time for everyone to read through the Tennyson warning. If not, when the PowerPoint gets sent out, you'll be able to have opportunity to read it in more detail at that point. So next we're going to talk about announcements. And the first announcement I want to share with everybody is that the August SSIS statewide release coffee talk for version 23.3 is going to be held Tuesday, August 22nd at the normal 9 a.m. time. Registration is now open, so feel free to get yourself prepared and ready and set the date for the release coffee talk coming up soon. And I'm going to hand the mic on over, the virtual mic, over to Alex for her grand announcement.
Hi, I'm Alex Mentis, SSIS manager, and I want us all to extend a warm welcome back to Eric Kratt. Some of you may remember Eric from a year ago when he was the lead SSIS trainer. He spent the last year working in the DHS enterprise on systems overall and managing budgets and making sure that DHS systems are working well together. And we were able to coax him back to become the new SSIS user support supervisor. So Eric oversees the SSIS training team as well as the SSIS Tier 1 help desk. So Eric has decades, yes, decades, Eric, of human services experience. He knows training, he knows the application really well, and he knows our end users. So we are so grateful that he can come, hit the ground running. And today he's monitoring the chat. So let's keep him on his toes and send him your best questions. So I will turn it over to Eric to say hi to you all, but I think a lot of you probably already know him and would like to send him a little applause emoji. Eric?
Thanks, Alex. I don't really have a huge speech prepared, but it is really good to be back. I did spend a year kind of learning about the funding aspects of SSIS, and modernization and all of that. And I'm happy to be back in my now current capacity, as Alex indicated, as a supervisor for the user support team, which includes our amazing learning and development team, as well as our tier 1 help desk. So we're on a new frontier. You know, there's so much to explore with SSIS in terms of, you know, learning and development and how we can best support our users, and also, you know, work with our business operations partners to modernize the system. So really happy to be back and looking forward to working with all of you on exploring this new frontier. So I'll turn it back over to our MC. Thanks so much.
Actually, I think it's going to be back to Alex. Sorry, Cynthia.
Thanks, Ross. So, wanted to just, whoops, there we go. Morning, everybody. Had an update. We frequently are getting some questions about gender identity in SSIS, and there have been recently some changes. So just wanted to kind of address what some of those, address the concerns and issues that we're having, and just talk through a little bit of this information. So, all right, here. So, for really throughout all of the systems of DHS, all of the computer applications, the definition of gender has really been defined as the legal sex assigned at birth, but it's been labeled as gender. So of course, you know, kind of the thought around a lot of this around gender and sexual orientation and, you know, individual's identity has really changed since a lot of the systems were, you know, first developed. So, so there has been a lot of work and consideration at DHS around that to really reflect and do a better job of not only collecting data, but really, you know, providing better practice for all of Minnesotans. So DHS has just finished a multi-year study, and this has been all about trying to establish some data standards for gender, sexual orientation, and similar identifying characteristics of people's individual identities. So, so that would include standards for all of the information systems for DHS, so SSIS, Maxis, and so on. This work was really extensive over several years. It included extensive research of really kind of best practices, and also really extensive community input. Sorry, you guys, if my screen is moving, my cat is here rubbing his head against my computer. So I apologize. So the result of this has been some really specific recommendations for systems to change to better reflect kind of the needs of throughout Minnesota, community needs, as well as best practices for data standards for really what we generally refer to as SOGI, but for this, they're referring to as gender data standards. So that has been a process that is, they've just finished, come out with their recommendations. And for the systems right now, we're, it's a little bit on hold. We're waiting for kind of the green light to move forward on projects to make the changes that that have been recommended, and that will be our new DHS data standards. So those will be pretty extensive, and because they're, you know, related to all of the different systems. So those are going to be extensive projects that will probably be multi-year projects to get going. We have had a change. Many of you are probably aware of the announcement. Max has put an announcement out in SIR at the end of May, and this was really announcing a change in practice for the local agencies and how they enter gender into Maxis and MEC squared. And that's really specifically when someone chooses to not answer the question of gender because it is a required binary field at this point. Just male, female are available. So this allows entry of gender that doesn't match their legal sex assigned at birth, and can cause some issues between Maxis and SSIS. So, so we are getting a few questions about this, like how to handle this. What does this mean? Some specific situations where we've had some questions about clearing or specific practice things that can't get done in the system because of this. So a couple of things we wanted to just highlight. One is that if there are claiming issues, right, we want to make sure that your claiming goes through. So we would suggest that you clear that gender through to max whatever is in Maxis so that we can maximize our claiming as well. And for SSIS, as we move forward, there will be changes for how we're entering and what that data looks like for gender, for sex assigned at birth, for similar fields. So for right now, we're going to continue to suggest that the legal sex assigned at birth is used in SSIS for the gender field, even though we know those are not the same thing. And there will be changes within all of our data systems, again, to reflect our new gender data standards. And again, this will be a long process. It really has to be carefully coordinated to improve accurate reflection of Minnesotans, as well as to continue to ensure that the data for each individual is secure and private, especially with the new addition of some data that people, we really need to be attentive to privacy and protect data. And we also need to ensure security from a perspective of making sure that each person is cleared as an individual across each of the systems. We don't want to have duplication. We want to make sure that we don't want to create additional problems as we are moving forward on this process. We all know about PMIs and kind of, the duplicate issues that we've been having. And so we don't want to create something similar with any changes that we have around the gender data standards. So, and in addition, complementary to the new DHS gender data standards, there's also really across DHS, and I've been involved specifically with child welfare, but there's other efforts for considerations for training and policy and really best practices on working with people from any community, and really about, as workers in the field, how to work with gender, sexual orientation, and other individual characteristics, different communities. And so there's other training that is being developed, and other best practice guides that are being developed or updated. So we know we have some out for other things. So much more to come on this. If you do have specific questions, please send it over to the help desk. Shauna or Stacy or Cassie will make sure to get it to the right person, and we'll work through whatever your questions are on that. And because each situation is a little bit different, so feel free to reach out anytime, and we will attend to whatever your specific needs are for a specific situation, and make sure we can work through it and remove any barriers that there might be for whatever your business need is. Do we contact the help desk? I see there's a question from Terry. Yep. Yes. All right. Do we contact the help desk when the gender does not Maxis on the clearing log as permanency case? Yes. So yes, Terry, absolutely contact the help desk and we can work through those. Yes, Kathy, when you change the legal name and gender, can the alias also be listed? Yes. All of those things, I would say, really one of the things that we're doing is cataloging all of these questions, and we're hoping to be able to give this information back out to people once we kind of have some questions that we're getting pretty regularly about this. And yeah, Kathy, we have seen a few court order name and gender change. And so it kind of really just depends on the individual situation with that person, whether there's claiming issues, whether there's, like Terry mentioned, those permanency issues. I will say that as part of, really related to this, we've had a lot of, for people who are doing permanency work in SSIS, a lot of that has been really gender specific. And so there is some there's some thought and consideration right now, at least in the child welfare world, around this permanency and the need to maybe update some business rules in the system to make it a little bit more reflective of kind of current reality, where we sometimes we have three parents, or sometimes, right, we don't have a legal birth father, or to really just kind of get with the times. So that I know that our policy staff here in the foster care area are looking at some ways to really attend to that and make some changes in the system that would be not only in the system, but really changes potentially in statute, that then we would update in the system to be a little bit, what's the right word? A little bit less restrictive for permanency in particular. But I would say all of those situations, send them into the help desk. They're all kind of need to be attended to separately based on whatever the particular situation is with that person. And if you have any other, just random questions as you think, just send them into the help desk, and we'll make sure that they get to the right person. We get back to you very quickly.
All right, if that's all the questions that we have so far on this topic, we can move on to the next topic. We'll have Marcia come on with document template or editor.
Great, thanks. This is Marcia Riss. I am the change and engagement consultant in SSIS BizOps. And so one of the questions that came in from mentoring, and I don't know if it was so much as a question as a request, we had a request from an agency looking for some training on using the document template editor. So since we didn't have a whole lot of system specific questions this go around, we're going to take a little time to do a little bit of an overview on the document template editor. So first, I always want to note the document template editor, this is a place where there are some state document templates that still exist, but agencies also are able to create their own document templates for use in SSIS. So the intention to replace to replace this part of SSIS for some time. However, that's a pretty big haul and will take a lot of resources. So this is yet to be completed. So there's no guarantee when it comes time to replace the editor that the agency created templates that are being used, that the current editor, that are in the current editor will still be available. So I'm sure, of course, we'll do our best, but we can't guarantee that this has been, we can't guarantee that they will still be available. And this has been the message for many years now. So agencies creating templates within this editor do take the chance that they will have to recreate them at some point when we have a new editor environment. Some agencies have decided to avoid spending time creating items using the document template editor for this reason, and instead have created documents using other systems outside of SSIS, and those documents then live outside of SSIS. And some agencies continue to use and create documents within the SSIS document template editor. So each agency really makes this decision for themselves, but I just kind of wanted to throw that caveat out there. I'm not trying to encourage people to or not to use the document template editor, but just throwing that out so that people are aware. So things I want to go through, and there's a lot. We have a whole module. I did list that link here on the slide on the bottom. It says SSIS document template editor module, which was updated in April of 2022. So it's pretty updated. And it's a big document. So I'm not going to be able to go through everything and, walk you through everything demo it, but kind of go through the big things. So the key features that I'm going to walk through are security, template lists, template editor, multiple element types, merge fields, creating and changing headers and footers. You can go to the next slide there, Ross. Thank you. So security, only users with the assigned function of create document templates will be able to view, edit, delete, or add document templates. Once they have this function, they can access the document template editor from the tools menu. Be sure not to confuse the RTF document template header option with the document template editor option. These each apply to different templates, and headers created in one do not automatically work with the other. So if your agency has a new header or changing of header information that you're wanting to apply to all documents in SSIS, be sure that you're updating both the RTF document template headers that you have currently applied to RTF documents, as well as the headers you have applied to the local and state documents that are listed in the document template editor. These are not interchangeable, so keep that in mind. It's really easy to get those mixed up, and I've had quite a few people actually, when they send in questions, I find out, oh, they're trying to do something in one of the options, but it's really for a document that's already listed, in as an RTF document or something like that. So don't want to waste your time. Just make sure that you know which document type that you're looking at. Next slide. So the template list. The template list grid displays state preloaded templates along with agency custom templates. So the templates list is a grid type list. So just like in SSIS, right? So right-clicking on the various headers allows you to use the SSIS grid options, such as the auto filter, the find panel, and various sorting options to group and locate various headers. So remember that templates will be in draft status when you're initially creating them. And once you've edited and then activated them, you can find them to use from within SSIS documents folder. So initially, if you create something and it's in draft, you haven't activated it and you go out to SSIS, it's not going to be available there. You're not going to see that as an option. So keep that in mind. So once you've activated it to test it out, and please be sure that you're testing those out before you make it agency-wide for use. Be sure that if you find you need to do further editing of the template after you've activated it for testing, that you delete any of those test copies of the template within SSIS. Otherwise, you're going to return to that document template editor, and it's not going to allow you to change the status to draft from your active status. So instead, if there are existing documents saved in SSIS for the template that you're wanting to edit, you're going to need to inactivate the template and then create a copy of that to put in draft form in order to edit. I really hate that myself when I'm doing that, because of course then your list gets longer and longer on that template list. They're never going to go away if they exist out in SSIS somewhere. So to avoid having to go through these extra steps and having a huge long list in the My Template list, I would always try to title my testing document so that when it's still in draft, title it with something that workers are not likely to use. So something like, starting it with ZZ or do not use. So it's at the bottom of the list when they go to create a document. And then once I fully tested and we're ready to promote an item for worker use, I would update the name to be descriptive of the template, and activate. So just some little tricks that you can do to avoid having to always, not know who's used that in my agency, and then having to go in and inactivate and make a copy, and then have another item on your list to confuse you later when you have a huge long list of templates that are inactive. So just a little trick. You can go to the next slide. Thanks. So the document template editor. So the template editor screen is where the body of the template is created, and document elements and merge fields are used to create or update a template. Agency template creators are the only ones able to create those local agency templates. So there are 4 types of documents that they can create within the document template editor. So So the 4 types are headers and footers headers and footers templates, service plan templates, workgroup templates, and style sheets templates. So the headers and footers templates allows you to create agency letterhead for use on state or local agency documents created in the document template editor. So not to be confused with those that are in the RTF document template header list. Service plan templates are for templates that function like a service plan, right? And can be made available in the service plan folder. A workgroup template provides the means to create several data elements such as checkboxes, input fields, text areas, and merge fields, and is available within the workgroup's chronology within the document folder. Style sheets templates. This is only available for those with edit document template HTML authorization, and that authorization for that access, this is going to need to be granted by the help desk, and it's only available for staff who have training in JavaScript. So most staff would not have this, even if you're a template creator. This is an auth granted only for those with that JavaScript training, since any changes could potentially corrupt active templates. Something that I never had myself, and I was able to create plenty of templates without having it. So you can still use that document template editor, even if you don't have that JavaScript training. You just won't be able to use the style sheets template. I see a couple of questions. Let's see, did SSIS template editor get the ability for counties to put our county seals in the headers yet? Terry, yeah, you can do that. And we're going to talk a little bit how to do that. It's really about using an image and adding that to the header. So actually I have that in here. And so we'll talk about that. Can this information be made into a saved doc so we can refer to this later and share with teammates? Yeah, this information is all going to be sent out or I should say posted. And I believe we usually send out, I'll check with Heidi after this, but I believe we also send it out with my notes here. So it'll have kind of the details that you don't see on your slide. So yeah, we'll make sure that this gets out there. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Thanks. I'm just looking at the comments here. When I select the preview tab, it does not show me a preview and it freezes up and I have completely exit SSIS. Is that supposed to work? I'm not sure what you mean, Sharon. When I select the preview, it should show the preview. I thought that bug was fixed a while back, but send it into the help desk and we can take a look. Okay, so back to the slides. Document template editor elements. So there are multiple types of fields or elements that you can add when creating or editing local agency documents, including the checkbox, list box, image, input field, text area, and date field. The screenshot showing for the checkbox includes the tree view, so that you can oops, sorry, I gotta stop looking at the comments. Checkbox includes the tree view, so you can edit next to the editor screen. So to add an element, you would right click on the elements folder. So you see in the checkbox, I have the tree view there showing. So to add any of these elements, you're gonna right click on the elements folder in the tree view and then choose the element type that you want to add. Once added, you will click and drag that element from beneath the elements folder to the spot on the document that you want it to appear. And you can only use each of the added elements one time. So once it's moved to the document, you see, just like you see in that screenshot in the checkbox little screenshot there, you see the little red circle with the line through it indicating that you already used that item. You can't use it again. So once you can see there, hopefully it's not too tiny, where it says checkbox 1. Checkbox 1 is already on the screen. That's the truancy box there. And so since it's used, you can't add it to the document again. You'd have to add a new element if you wanted it a second time. Each element added will have various related properties, which will need to be completed based on how you want the element to function in the document. So for example, for a checkbox, should the box default as checked or unchecked? Should a field be required to have something entered in it for the user to save the template or not? These decisions will need to be answered when the document is being created for the rules to then apply later when the user is actually using that template. So I'm going to walk through these element types a little bit here. So the checkbox is just a standard Windows checkboxes, which may be added individually or in element sets. List boxes are for when you want a user to choose one item from a set list of items. So here you have like yes, no, or sometimes. They get one option, right? Image. So images may be inserted into documents. The image can be imported from saved images if they are saved to an agency drive that has been mapped. And certain files, such as the PDFs or Microsoft Office Open XML, are not supported in this editor. So keep that in mind. You have to make sure that you're adding a supported image file. So if you're trying to add in one of those images for, say, one of your headers, you want to make sure that you've chosen a supported image file type. So users can look on page 17 of that module that I had on my first slide. So see page 17 of the document template editor module for the full list of extension types. Personally, I usually use JPEGs and those work just fine, which are supported. So when you go to save like a screen grab of, I think it was Terry who was talking about the seal, you would save that as the JPEG so that then you could come in here and import that image into your document. Remember, if you're creating a header or footer and have a screen grab, so I'm just saying again here of what you want displayed in the header or footer, that's an image. So save into the supported file type, follow the image insert instructions found in the module along with those header and footer instructions to create or edit your local agency header or footers. Input type. So the input field is a small free text field as shown here in the field after behavior problems. And it shows type in that box. The type is entered as a prompt to let users know what to enter, or you can have an input field that has no prompt, such as the empty text field shown after other. So users are limited to 256 characters or less for any input field. For larger text needs, you're going to use the text area element instead. So text area. Text areas are fields that are going to allow large amounts of text to be entered. So these are ideal for summary or open-ended questions that you want completed. Template creators should not type information or labels within a text area, as it will not save or be visible for the template user once the template has been activated. So keep that in mind if you're adding a label or something like that to your to your text area, you want to put that outside of the actual text area box. So like right above it to indicate what they should be putting in there. The date field, this element allows for a simple date picker to appear within the setup of the document. Create the date element, choose a label and date format, and indicate if required for saving the document. Then click and drag and drop the element where you want it to appear in the document template. When a worker creates the document, once it's been activated, right? They'll be able to complete the date picker that you created within the setup of the document, and then their chosen date is going to merge into the document itself, wherever you chose for the location to show up on the template. Template creators may also create sets of some of the document elements. So things like checkboxes, input areas, and text areas each have the option to create a set of elements, to create several of them at once. So each with a unique identifying number in the tree view. So you can see this, I did this in the example for the checkbox. So you can see where it says checkbox 1, checkbox 2, checkbox 3, checkbox 4. You could create those each separately, or you could, since I knew I was going to do that many, I can just do a whole set of them. All right, I'm going to jump over to the comments here because I see a few things. I've had trouble with the font size when creating, copying new documents for some of the element boxes. The preview tab freezes up and locks me out. So the only way we find out the font size is too small for those boxes is someone has used the document and I can't edit it. So Trisha, I did take a look at the font sizes. I'm not sure if you had sent in any of that question, but somebody else had asked about that too. And I didn't get into the details here, but there is some information in the module about using the print preview, which is different than just the preview tab. So you want to make sure that you're not just using the preview tab, you're actually going like as if you were going to print it, and then you should be able to do it. But you can also send that question in directly to the help desk if it's not working for you, and I can help take a look at that for you. Let's see, from Lori. I tried the image, logo, JPEG, etc., and they didn't seem to work. This was a while ago. I haven't gotten back to it. So, Lori, there was an issue for some time, and it's since I've been here. So within the last 2 years, there was an issue where there was a defect and it wasn't working with the images. It is now working, and I did just test that out when I was working on this, preparing this to make sure, yep, it's working again, and it is working. So it should work for you now if you follow the instructions. Again, use the image instructions along with the header footer instructions that are located on the module. And if you have trouble, go ahead and send that in and I can take a look with you. Terry, I'm on the same way. Lori, I was told that IT had to make a certain type of image for it to work. So yeah, there are certain types you have to do, but you should be able to do that, Terry. If you're having trouble, send it in and I'll help you take a look, but make sure that you're using those instructions on the module. All right. Oh, thank you, Katie. That's my puppy, so I had to throw him in here. That's Tank. Our letterhead will work. Let's see, Katie says, our letterhead will work, apply to state documents, but not local. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we haven't been able to get them to apply. Send it into the help desk and we'll take a look, Katie. Thanks. All right, let's go to the next slide. So merge fields. Merge fields are used to pull existing data from elsewhere in SSIS into a document template. These fields help minimize data entry duplication. So within the tree view of the document editor, you can right-click on either the agency or the workgroup folder. And actually, if I could have you, Russ, can you just jump back to that last slide? I wasn't able to get as many. Thank you. Perfect. So you see what I'm talking about here, where it has the checkbox there under elements. Under elements, if I had minimized that, there's 2 additional folders. It's the agency folder. It looks just like the elements folder, but it says agency, and then another one that says work groups. Okay, you can go on to the next slide. Sorry, I didn't want to have too many darn screenshots in here, so I didn't add that one. So that's what I'm talking about here. So within the tree view of the document editor, you can right-click on either the agency or workgroup folder of a document that you're creating or editing to get the options for adding various related merge fields within your document template. So for example, participant name, addresses, diagnosis, and such can all be pulled from the SSIS worker production to appear in the document template. So where you see the plus symbol on some of these items, so on my second screenshot there, that's the workgroup element screenshot. So when you see that one, the last 3, it says plus case, plus participant, and plus staff, right? Wherever you see that, if I were to click on one of those, it's going to give me another whole list of items. So like if I click on participant, then I'm going to get another window that looks like this with another whole list of items that I can actually pull directly from the participant, right? So if I'm using those, it's helping me pull data directly in from whatever's already entered in SSIS, like an address or race information or whatever it may be, right? Let's see. So for example, if you click participant, then you will have a second window, like I just said. Okay. End users cannot edit data from merge fields in the document at the time the document is generated. So these will autofill based on what is entered in SSIS. However, a worker may correct or update the info within SSIS, then regenerate the document and remerge to the document to get the updated information for the chosen merge fields to update within the document, as long as it has not yet been activated or locked. So similar how other documents work. So similar how like your state documents might work, where you see something, oh shoot, I don't have the race information entered. I go back to the race information under the person in SSIS, add that information in there, or correct it, and then go back and remerge my document. All right, next screen. The most common question or struggle, which we've already heard a little bit on the chat, right, has to do with struggling to create local agency headers. So the first thing I will always ask when I get questions about this sent into us is when you send in the question, don't just leave it totally general. I want to know what is the specific document that you're trying to add the header to. Oftentimes, this is where I run into, oh, they've been struggling with this, and now I find out the document they're trying to add that keeps not adding it. It's because they're trying to add it in the document template editor, but this is one of the documents over on the RTF document header screen instead. So make sure that you're paying attention. What is the document that you actually want the header added to? And make sure that you're doing both if you're trying to add the header across the board, right, to all the documents in SSIS that have headers, I should say. So if the document is listed on the RTF document template header list, you're going to need to add the header from the document template, or I'm sorry, you will not need to add the header from the document template editor, right? So please make sure that you're paying attention. What document is this? Is it listed over there, or is it in your document template editor screen? If you need to create or change your local agency header, you can do so using the instructions module, pages 22 through 25, but remember, you will first need a supported image of your existing header so that you can use that to add the image element to the document. Once created, use the print preview, not just the preview tab, to view. I always suggest testing the header out by activating, adding to a document that you want it to appear on, testing it, and if it doesn't appear as intended in the print preview, delete the test document you created so you can go back to the document template editor, change the status back to draft, and edit or adjust as needed and do again. Once you have it as intended, then update and add to any and all of the templates that you want. It does take a little finagling, right? Like everybody has different size things and you kind of got to mess with it a little bit. So you might have to go back and forth a little bit and spend some time getting it just right so it appears the way you want it on your headers. All right, next slide. So troubleshooting. There is some troubleshooting that if you've looked at the module for the document template editor, you might have overlooked. But I thought that there was some good information on how to view and changes to fonts for inputs and text areas. How to format merge fields is on there. How to apply formatting to an entire section of text that includes merge fields. So that's talking, again, formatting would be like your fonts. How to group merge fields in the tree view for use with autofill tables, and how to have multiple races already entered in SSIS autofill into a template. So there are some information on there. Make sure that you're taking a look at that if those are the things that you're struggling with. All right, I'll give everyone a second to breathe. I feel like that was a lot of words with the document template editor. And then we will jump over to Cassie's Corner. Cassie, are you on?
I am on. Good morning, everyone.
Thanks.
Hi. I'm Cassie. I am with the Tier 1 Help Desk, and I just thought it might be a nice time to kind of touch base on submitting tickets to the help desk. I know not everybody on here is a mentor, but I feel like we have a great deal of new mentors that have started recently. We've had a lot of people retire or leave, and maybe just some of our general practices have not been passed down, or just a refresher's nice. I always forget things if I'm not reminded. So I figured I'd just do some kind of tips and tricks for submitting your help desk tickets and getting the best response. So I want to remind everybody that each new issue or question that you have should be a new email, or as we call them at the help desk, tickets. When you respond to an old ticket, I mean, that works, but it's more effective and it's easier for us to find and keep track of if you send in a new email. We like to pull our data and kind of see what topics are commonly being brought up. And if we're just going on at the same string of emails, it's hard to keep track of those topics. When you're submitting a ticket, use identifying numbers. So things like SSIS workgroup numbers, the SSIS person number, Swindex numbers, or your PMI numbers. All of those help us. Names are good too, but the numbers really pinpoint who we're looking at or which work group we're looking for. And I always say, and I was taught, that it's best to copy and paste the number directly from SSIS. I mean, after all, we're all human, and I mess up numbers all the time, and I'm sure you guys all are able to do that as well. So copying and pasting avoids that human error. When sending your emails in, plain formatting in your email is really best for how we receive the tickets. We have what we call a queue, and your emails come in. And when you have fun backgrounds, we love that you have fun backgrounds, but it doesn't translate well for us. So it can make the email really hard to read. Sometimes we've got things where people have like a fun color background and they use like white font, and I'm sure that looks great, but we can't read it, and it makes it really hard for us to help us or help you. So sending with a plain formatting is definitely the best thing. And also when you're sending those emails, if there's no identifying information in there, you don't have to send it secure, especially for general questions. Sending secure makes it so we have to go through those extra steps to open the email. I know we all get annoyed by the extra steps. And it's not really just an annoying thing. We just want to be able to help you as quickly and as conveniently for all of us as possible. And also, we get a lot of emails that will come in, and it's a whole thread of emails that you've been discussing within your agency for a long time. And we'll have something that just says see below. That's wonderful that we get all of that information, and we really like having all of the information, but it makes it really hard for us to have to weed through the entire conversation. If you can try to make it really clear and concise and specifically state your need, that's really helpful for us, because then we can kind of get to the point and really help you guys the most effective way we can. So I used to, when I'd send in tickets, I'd say, okay, we need this and this and this. Please see below if you need more information. And that's kind of helpful. Kind of along that line, when sending in a ticket, please try to avoid putting urgent in the subject line or marking the email as urgent, unless it really is urgent. So urgent issues would be something that's a stop work issue or something that's really time sensitive. This keeps us from getting kind of burnt out on seeing urgent, and it keeps us really alert when we see urgent, and then we're like, oh, we really need to attend to this as quick as possible. And I know we can be really frustrating because we ask a lot of questions. These questions really help us narrow down what your need actually is, and it ensures that we're getting all of the information to help you. So please make sure to try to answer all of the questions that we ask to the best of your ability. I know that they may seem really tedious or obvious, but we really try not to make assumptions on what's going on, and asking those questions is how we get to help you the most effective way. And those PMI pushes, I'm sure you guys are sick of sending in requests for those, but they're really not a problem. Send them in. And to make things even more simple for you, all we really need when you're requesting a PMI push is a PMI number. Adding names can be helpful for us to double check that when we enter our PMI or the PMI number in to be pushed, and we can make sure we're getting the right person. But otherwise, we don't need the Swindex number and all of the date of birth and stuff. You know, save yourself the time, and then we can help you help. We can help. We can all work together. Just a reminder, we've seen an increase with requests, and probably people are doing cleanup to separate pre and post adoptive identities that have kind of been combined. We want to make sure to keep them separate. It's difficult and time consuming to get them separated if we join them. So keeping them separate from the get-go is really important, and it's really good for data integrity. If you end up losing a case note or some documentation, do nothing. Notify the help desk as quick as possible. Try not to do more to try and recreate it or find it. The quicker we're notified, the better your chances are of having it recovered. And remember, data recovery is not a guaranteed thing. And oftentimes there's not a whole lot we can do. But saving often when you're working in SSIS, especially on a long document, or when you're typing in case notes and stuff, that will help us be able to recover things. That increases your chances of getting your data recovered. Hopefully you're not having any data that disappears. And lastly, I just want to remind everybody how to log out of SSIS properly. And I've seen this many, many times when working in the agency. And I think it's just something that it's so easy to just exit and just be done. But really, to end your session the most effective way and kind of the cleanest disconnect so that we don't have any issues later on with sessions getting hung up and then you get weird error messages and stuff. You really need to, each time you're exiting your session, close all of your windows and then log out by using the little key button or file log out. Then you're going to do file exit. And the step that is most often overlooked is you need to disconnect from VMware by using that back arrow. And make sure that you click the back arrow and say okay to disconnecting the session. That just makes it really clean and makes it easier and prevents it getting hung up. So that's pretty much all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Thanks, Heidi. I think we're going back to Marcia. You got some magic for us?
There is a question in the chat from Jody, if you don't mind
Wonderful.
me interrupting. It says, would it make sense to do an enhancement request that prohibits pulling in a pre-adoptive ID to new intakes or work groups? Once the adoption is finalized, we really would never provide services to the pre-adoptive ID. Or could we somehow make it more obvious that it is a pre-adoptive ID?
I think I'd really have to think on that.
I can help you a little bit there, Cassie. I actually
Thanks,
know
Marcia.
that there is an enhancement request, Jody, which I do think is a great enhancement request. There is an enhancement request already out there for that. And, you know, I think it's a matter of, you know, seeing how to best do that and resources and all of those types of things. But yeah, I think that that's a really great one that we've talked about in the past too. So I know I've been going through that enhancement list and that is on there. Any other questions for Cassie? All right, it's back to me. Hopefully you guys have digested all the document template editor talk. I feel like that was such a mouthful. So I'm going to go through a few things. I want to talk about a defect that we are aware of and how to use that time to initial contact with victims report that has that defect. Currently, while we're fixing that, we want to talk a little bit about, I want to do some review of enhancements, so good timing, current and completed. And then I have some poll questions for the group. So we're going to give a little trial to using out the poll function on the WebEx. I haven't done it before, but hopefully we know what we're doing. And then we're going to talk a little bit about using grids, because grids are my thing, to quickly find the status, worker unit, kind of that type of information out there. So let's go to the next slide. So the known defect that I wanted to point out. So the time to initial contact with victims report, it's found in SSIS under tools, general reports, child maltreatment folder, and then you have that time to initial contact with victims report. It has a defect which causes duplicated rows for some children to appear in the report. So in the example shown here, the first row appears with the required timeline hours column, showing one row at 120 with the timeline override as yes, and the second row with hours showing 24 with the timeline override indicator empty. So the column information in the second row contains the same exact information as the first row, except for those two columns. The timeline met column sometimes may be the same and sometimes may not be. It's really going to be different, may be different due to the discrepancy in the required timeline column. This appears to be related to an issue with how the report looks at timelines for alleged victims having a timeline override entered before a second intake for the report was referred to the initial assessment work group. So agencies can disregard the duplicated row on the report that indicates 24 in the required timeline hours if there's an identical row that shows 120 in the same column. The only other discrepancy that you would see between the rows is that the two may be different on the timeline met column. So we're working to resolve that issue on the report and we'll notify agencies as soon as that's corrected. So just wanted to make sure that people are aware of that. We've had at least one, I know, question that came in. I think there's been actually a couple though. And we've been working on that. So it happened, it appears, you know, when we added that override and it was just an oversight. So you don't see it all that often, but then an intake comes in after the fact and it just is not counting those correctly. And it ends up looking like a duplicate. So hopefully that makes sense to anyone. I'm going to look to see if I got any chat here. Nope. Okay, so we're going to move on. And I'm not sure, we may have already put this also, this information, I think we did in an SSIS update recently too. So you should have already seen it, but I just want to make sure we got that information out. So we want to talk a little bit about enhancements since we have a little bit of extra time here. So because there wasn't a lot of questions sent in this round, again, I thought this could be a good opportunity to talk a bit about the SSIS enhancements. It's something that I always wondered about and sometimes was frustrated by. So I want to talk a little bit about it. The current system has been used for tracking since about 2016. Since that time, and I pulled the data myself here, since that time, there's been 248 enhancements that have been completed. Though the chart indicates 21 are from agencies, I believe there actually were quite a few of the 90 where it says 90 under the not indicated transfer from previous tracking system. But again, they were transferred from another system, so I wasn't able to get all the data from that group. That also looked to be originally from agencies, but the older system did not have that field for me to look at. Also, oftentimes, items agencies have expressed as needing changes to, if they express it to the policy staff, sometimes they come to us directly from policy staff versus from the agency themselves. I just want to point out, there are things getting done, not as much as, of course, any of us ever want due to resource issues, but there has been things getting done over the last several years. So next screen. So yeah, there we go. Currently. So currently awaiting design or development. So there are currently 229 items that are currently in the awaiting design or development resources. So this chart shows the breakdown of the areas those enhancements have come from. So I just kind of, again, this is like a general breakdown based on who sends it in, what do we have out there right now. Next screen, please. So I want to talk a little bit about the process, which is really in the works of having some changes made right now. But let's talk about that. So who submits? Right now, counties and tribes can submit, also various program policy areas at DHS. So it's not just, we're not just getting requests in from the counties and tribes that are sending things in. We're also getting it from all the different policy areas that use SSIS. So we have, you know, adult aging service, adult aging service, VACP, AMH, so adult mental health, CMH, that's children's mental health, child safety and permanency, disability services division, home and community-based services, financial operations division, mid-choice, Minnesota courts, Minnesota Department of Ed, Minnesota Department of Health, OIG licensing, So there's actually quite a bit of things coming in from all over. We don't just service, I shouldn't say just, but we don't service only the counties and tribes, right? We're servicing all these policy areas that use SSIS as well, to get their information out, right, to the counties and tribes. So when various program policy areas are sending things in, oftentimes their items take precedence because they are related to federal, state, tribal law changes and requirements or audit findings. So that's why you see so many items sometimes in the county and tribe lists that weren't being done right away. It's because we have to prioritize based on what resources we have. How to submit. So policy areas can submit directly via our internal SharePoint site. And soon that's going to be over to a Microsoft 365 site. So they all have access right now. Some have access and some don't. Or they can contact the SSIS help desk, who will send them to SSIS business operations staff for assisting completing and submitting the form. For counties and tribes who are sending requests in, we ask them to send them to the SSIS help desk. The help desk then sends on to the appropriate member of the SSIS BizOps team, sometimes myself, sometimes others, maybe fiscal, who will follow up as needed. So when we say follow up as needed, sometimes this means submitting the request just as it is. Sometimes it's following up with the submitter for additional information or clarification, maybe following up with policy staff or consults on a specific request. To make sure, there wouldn't be implications policy-wise that they could be concerned about. If we determine that the enhancement is not appropriate or necessary, the BizOps team member who's following up will follow up with the requester. So you'll hear back saying, here's what we think, or here's how you can do this differently. Oftentimes we do this with some information on resources that may help them resolve the issue that prompted their original request. So how are they prioritized? This is what we're changing right now. So this is changing in an effort for more transparency, a new form and process, which will involve some formulaic auto calculations to help score and rank items accordingly, is in the works. So we hope to have the new system in place and running in the next few months. And so what that means is hopefully, there will be a little bit more transparency just out there for all of you to be able to know, it's not just us saying, oh, I know this person, so I'm going to push this through. That's not happening. But I think sometimes that's what we all think. That's what I used to think. Oh, gosh, I must not know the right people, right? It's not that at all. But this will add to that. So it'll play into our ranking. How many people are being affected? Is this a stop workage issue? Are there requirements pertaining to this versus is it just a would be nice kind of thing? All those types of things will play into that formulaic auto calculation and help us rank them. Our goal of the new request form and submission process is really that the new system will allow easier tracking and more transparency. So stay tuned for more information as we get that going. This is a work in progress, and we're putting a lot of resources and efforts into that right now. It's a big part of my new role. So I'm hopeful that you'll be hearing more, and hopefully that'll help at least with the transparency piece, right? Resources is still an issue. But maybe we can weed some things out that aren't needed anymore and kind of clean up that so we know what people actually want. The other piece of that is I'm going to be bringing more things back to some of these open discussions when we have time to poll you guys to see, hey, is this still wanted? Is this, what do you think about this? To get a little bit more feedback from agencies on a whole. So we're going to do that next. So let's go to the next slide. So here's one of our enhancements that we received, an enhancement request. Agency requested to have a data cleanup error added as a notification for missed CMH screenings, so the children's mental health screenings. So currently, agencies are able to, by department, unit, or worker, can run the CMH screening exception report to view the CMH screening status. Agency requests also adding the data cleanup error as they think that will help as well. So I want to be, before we look at adding, sometimes I also hear complaints about adding things like data cleanup. Workers get overwhelmed with the amount of data cleanup. So I thought I would throw a poll out there on this one. So let's see if I can do that now. I'm going to go to my polling, and let's see, I have two polls. We're going to start with this one. I'm going to throw this one out there, open poll. And hopefully you guys can see that. Oh, I hear it's working, so that's good. We'll give everybody like a minute here. So go ahead and put an answer in there. So the question is, would your agency like to see an additional data cleanup error for CMH screenings? And you can choose from on the work group, would not be required to be completed to close the work group. So that's yes, we would want it. On the person, so a data cleanup that would appear on the person, not specific to a work group. They would prefer, number 3 is, or I should say C, prefer to be reminded, prefer a reminder be added to reminders and alerts log, or no, do not need to add an additional data cleanup. We'll use the existing report. I see answers still coming in, so we're going to give people another 30 seconds or so here. All right, it looks like things are slowing down. All right, you got 10 seconds and I'm closing that poll. Great. Okay, I closed that one out. Thank you. I will throw out, hopefully you can see the poll results. I'm going to save these so that I have them for later. All right, cool. All right, so we're going to have another poll. So I'm going to stop this poll. Maybe see if I can know how to do that. Well, I stopped the poll already. I think you have the poll results. I'm going to end the poll results here. And let's go to the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about this one too. Okay, so I'm going to get on my other. So I have a couple things to talk about this one before I throw the poll out there. So multiple requests from agencies over the years have been requesting for a way to allow for time recording within intakes. So not too long ago, APS made a way for them to do, for APS intakes only, to do time recording within there for time recording activities, contacts to be added directly to the intake. So CP policy staff have indicated that it may be possible to add the ability to enter time notes on CP and CW intakes, because I think CP is where, you know, with the child maltreatment reports is where we had some big concerns about that in years past. So it's always kind of been said, no, we're not gonna pursue that. But at this point, with APS already having done it, they have said, you know, it might be something we can pursue. However, they did make note that any notes pertinent to an intake or screening decision must still be documented in the CRM. So that's the child maltreatment report. Oh, I'm sorry, I think it should be CMR. Child maltreatment report narrative. Having it in the time entry would not negate this requirement. So they want to make sure that people are aware it's not going to get rid of that need to go back and put the information directly in the child maltreatment report information. So on that description that you have put in there. That said, a lot of agencies are 100% time recording and still are doing like double duty with time recording in order to, you know, put in a case note and then go and put a time note in for like intake in that, can't remember the, the word, but for the intake, they go in and put in under a brass code, right? I think it's 101. So with this in mind, we're wanting to look at, are you guys still interested in, you know, our agency is concerned about having this opened up? So, you know, if we could try to take something kind of like the APS approach. And so I have a few questions. Actually, there's going to be 3 polls on this one. I'm going to have one that asks you regarding time recording and intakes. Is your agency interested in having this ability? And just a yes or no. And then I'm going to have 2 open-ended questions with just short answers. So what I'm going to be looking for is what benefits, risks, or concerns do you envision this change having for your agency? So we want to make sure we're not like overlooking anything when we're talking about this enhancement. Things we should be aware of that would be helpful, or that you're concerned about. And are there any program areas that you would not want to allow time recording from within intake? So right here, we're talking about CP and CW, but it makes me kind of wonder, should we look at really doing this for all intakes? If we're already doing it for APS, and if we decide to do it for child protection, what about everything else, all the other program types? Are there any concerns? So I'm going to throw these polls out there. I'm opening them up right now. And you should be able to see them. And we'll give you a couple minutes on this one. It sounds like a couple people are not seeing the poll. I'm not really certain why. I am getting responses, so I know a good portion of people are. Oh, thanks, Natalia. That's probably it. She mentions click on the 3 dots next to chat. You might have to open your polling to be able to see those. We'll give people 1 more minute here, since I have some short answer ones. Sorry, Michael, I'm not really sure. So it says it only shows result from last poll for me. So if you're not seeing that, feel free to throw it in chat, just because we'll get those results. I'll be able to still save that information. I really just want it for looking into this a little further. So feel free to throw it in chat. Sorry about that. Give people about 30 more seconds here. Lori says that you can close the last results and then you should get the new poll. Thanks, Lori. It looks like I can watch the results as they're streaming in, and it looks like the yeses right now. The majority of people are wanting to be able to time record in intake. So, but we still have a good portion that didn't answer at all too. So. All right, 10 seconds, and I'm going to close this one out so we can move on. All right, closing that poll up. And let me save this so I don't lose it. Thanks for taking the time to do that. I think this is kind of a fun way to get some wider input when we have that option. All right, I have that saved. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, another enhancement that came in and has come in a few times, this request. So this request comes in many times with some slightly different variations, but essentially looking for a way to flag the work group icon to easily be able to show which work groups are open or closed. So because of many users having various color-related visual impairments, simply changing colors, I know that sometimes that sounds like, hey, we got an easy fix for that. It's really not as easy as that. It's not really adequate for us to just change the color on something, or change an icon isn't as easy as sometimes it sounds like. So resources being what they are, and this being a more of a nice to have versus a necessary, it's really not super likely that this would be something that would be done anytime soon. So seeing as this comes in periodically, I just wanted to do a quick refresher on how SSIS users can currently use what we have for tools in SSIS to adjust, your grids, your grid view for the work group to be able to really quickly find what work groups are open and what aren't. So I'm just going to do a little demo really here on how this works. So if you look at my screenshot, I just opened a person up because oftentimes that's what we're starting with is we're looking at the person. I opened up the work groups and intakes folders, and I have my highlighted where I've actually clicked on is where it says work groups. So you can see that work groups folder, and that's what's highlighted in the tree view there, right? So once you highlight in the tree view that work groups folder, then you'll see all of the work groups that are listed there in the tree view, but you're going to see them in a grid view instead. And when you see them in the grid view, that remember those grids, which if you've seen any of my trainings before or technical assistance pieces, I always talk about grids. Grids are your friend and you can do so much with them. So you'll see they have a little, all grids in SSIS can do these things. So keep that in mind for other grids as well. But up in the left-hand corner of your grid headers, where I have it circled or with a little square in red, there's that tiny little button. That's your column chooser. So if you click on that, then you're going to have your column options, and you have different columns you can add into this grid. So right now I have the default columns, I believe, in there. I think I added the unit column on my screenshot, but you can add whatever's helpful for you. So I usually have things like the work group name in there. I might have the work group number. Sometimes if I'm doing, if I'm like needing to change things from one case to another, I might add in my case number in here, case name and number. I have my close date, my worker, and my unit, right? So I that's what I like to have in mind. So you can choose those. You can click and drag the headers of the columns from one location to another in the grid. So you can actually have them even appear however you like, right? Let's go to the next screen. I have another screenshot here. So if you click within the header of the column that you want to sort by, the indicator will show when a sort is applied. So in this case, what you're looking for is you're looking to find, I want to know what all the close date and times of these work groups are. And I want to have the things that are open right at the top. That's at least how I would like to do it. So I just click on the close date and time header there in the grid, and suddenly you have all of your open items right at the top. You don't have to be clicking on in your tree view every single one of those, sometimes 20 work groups, right? You don't have to click on every single one of those to find what is open and what's not. Now what you would do is you would get in the habit of remembering that your grid view work groups are not in the same order as your items in the tree view. So keep that in mind. And so I would just say, okay, so the work group that I want is, let's say it's that first one, the Amy Foster CP assessment. It's dated 3/9/23. I'm going to look over to my tree view and I'm going to see that. And then I'm going to open up, like if I wanted to look in chronology or whatever, I can go directly to it versus always having to click on everything to look. So the other thing to remember on here is once you have these here, the grid sort order will stay this way, right? So if I close this screen and come back to this screen, or let's say tomorrow I reopen a different person, it's going to still be in this sort order. So I'm still going to see all of my open items at top. I'm not going to have to like readjust my grid every time. All the open items will be like this every time I open from the person search, click on the work group folder. It's saving that grid exactly how I like to look at it. So hopefully that helps some people, just save some time. I found it super helpful as an SSIS coordinator for a long time, and having to look at, a ton of work groups in a lot of families when you're trying to like fix things or go find things for people. It really saves a lot of time. And if you can train your workers to utilize those grids, it really saves so much time, makes things more efficient and less frustrating. So hopefully, any questions about that? I'm going to jump back over to the chat. I haven't been watching that. Let's see.
Marcia, I think there's just a couple questions about what reports the intake.
Oh, sure.
time activities might show up on.
Are we talking about the intakes? I'm sorry, the one that I talked about earlier, the defect time to initial contact one. Let's see. I'm trying to see which other ones you're talking about.
I believe it's related to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy or Lori, the poll that you took regarding documenting time on intakes.
Would these intake time contacts be listed on the CSR report? Would these intake time contacts? So that's a good question. Kathy, I don't know. I think that we would have to talk about how that would work. That's a really good question. I know they can't be claimed against. So, because I know I consulted with fiscal on that, but that would be something that we would have to keep in mind, and how should they be handled? Should they be there or should they not be? I think a lot of agencies currently, workers are putting their time still under the same brass code. It's just not against a work group, right? So the brass codes we would be looking at are like the things like the 101. I think it's intake and referral. So we would still be looking to use that same intake and referral brass code, but now it would be directly on the intake. But that's a really good question. I think we would have to talk about that and if they should be there or not. Let's see, or TCM reports. Well, not TCM because it's not claimable. So it wouldn't be on there. We know that for intakes. Any update on the ICWA enhancement requests? Terry, there's a whole lot of ICWA enhancement requests. Do you have something specific that you're asking about? I did send over recently the grouping of all the ICWA enhancement requests to our ICWA unit for them to review and make sure, are they all still wanted? Any updates to any of those as we're relooking at all of those things and making sure things are staying current. And then Kathy, time contacts on intakes. Yeah. So I think I covered that. Other questions? Okay, here, Kathy, let's see. Intake and referral are administrative time, so they are not claimable. Yeah, correct. Terry, social workers would like the timesheets to be associated with ICWA. Oh, Terry, I'm with you on that. I think I put that also in back when I was in my last agency. So I have no information on, resources currently being spent on that, but that is in our list of items and one of the higher priority items as well. I think that will be a big pull, but I agree. I think that would be a great one to have some kind of association there, but ultimately, no work has been done on it yet. It's in the enhancement requests and prioritized as pretty high. So anybody else? Other questions? All right, let's see. I think that was my last one. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep, I think we're gonna pass it on to the next one, and I think that's Cassie.
Hey everyone. Do we want to get the next slide, please? Oh, there it is. This month, we'd like to celebrate Donegan Linder as July's Mentor of the Month. Donegan has proven to be a great communicator with the help desk. He's very responsive and his requests are clear and concise, makes it really easy to work with him. Donegan is responsive and always willing to work through issues, and we really appreciate his cooperative nature when working with him. If your agency is interested in setting up an individual agency session with any of our SSIS staff, either in person or virtual, please contact the help desk and we'll get you connected and get things set up. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, well, that concludes today's session. So again, if you need any help from the SSIS help desk, we've got the help desk email address listed on the thank you page here. Other than that, thanks for joining us and stay golden, Minnesota. Radio Ross out.